Should we go?
I think so.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. I want to begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring with you to this place, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And this, as always, includes those who hear me say this each Sunday, as well as those who might be joining us for the first time this morning, and those, of course, who are streaming with us. You're all very welcome, and we appreciate all that you bring with you to this place this morning. A couple of things before we begin. One, some of you may have noticed I've lost a little weight. I'm starting to hear people say I went relatively vegan about 6 months ago, and I've been walking 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day, so it's not the stress diet, okay? I'm in good health. I'm okay. I do have some bags under my eyes. That's because I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning, which also isn't unusual on a Sunday. So I'm doing okay. Okay, so don't worry about me. But the other thing, on a more serious note, that I am very tired of is having to get up in this pulpit and try to respond to something I can't respond to, and that is yet another mass shooting. We've had too many within the last 24 hours. And I don't want to get up and offer a moment of silence. I don't want to offer a prayer. I don't want to offer words of solitude. And at the same time, I have nothing that I can say. It is so damn frustrating. We know what needs to be done. And so all I can do is be up here once again and express my outrage, which I know that many of you share. And even that doesn't do much good. So anyway, I've got to acknowledge it. I've got to acknowledge it because it sickens us all. But as I often have to say from the pulpit, don't expect any solace from me because I don't have it. I wish I did. So, on a more positive note, I think a lot of you are aware that last year, speaking of horrific shootings, we were planning on having a church meeting to discuss showing a controversial film called The Occupation of the American Mind regarding issues between Israel and Palestinian people. And the day before that meeting, we had a tragic shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. And we decided out of respect to just sort of put that off, which was certainly the right thing to do. But out of that conflict, I started receiving lots of emails from people who were very supportive around the country, including many Jewish people, including a fellow named Rabbi Michael Davis, who was one of the first to reach out. And he's a co-founder of Jewish Voice for Peace and is an active rabbi. And he's going to be coming here in August 16th, 17th, and 18th. So we'll have some stuff on the Friday evening before sundown, and then on the Saturday evening after sundown, so that we can make sure that we're a welcoming space for our Jewish neighbors who might want to participate. And then that Sunday morning, Rabbi Davis will be giving our message during both of our services. And he is somebody who has lived in Israel, has had a transformation of his own heart and mind on this issue. And although he doesn't represent all Jewish voices, he represents a significant Jewish voice that can help us navigate the difficulty of trying to talk about this issue that can be so divisive. So I'm really encouraging you to put it on the calendar. We'll be publishing more about it, but you can also pick up a reminder on the table in the back, and it also has a bio of Rabbi Davis. So please do that. And then I also want to give just a couple of minutes to Catherine Alexander, one of our board members, who's going to come up and make a brief announcement.
Well, it's fabulous seeing everybody here. I'm here to just let you know that myself and John Bagby, who's way in the back, tall guy, are members of the board today who are available to you to talk to if you want to. We will be either in the chapel or in the Cummings room, so feel free to just tap us on the shoulder and say that you want to talk with us if you'd like. We are having a listening session August 7th, which is a Wednesday evening, here at church from 6:30 to 8:30. This is in the sun. And we'll have another one August 25th. And we're hoping in the August 25th session that people who are feeling like maybe they don't share the majority opinion will feel comfortable enough to come forward and explain so that everybody can understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling and vice versa. So the August 25th is really a dialogue on difference. It will be a different format, which has not yet been designed, but it is to foster our ability to listen to each other with curiosity instead of incomprehension. How could you possibly feel that way? We want to say instead, my God, how could you feel that way? I want to know. That's the shift we're hoping to practice. Okay? Now, and you can practice it now, too, with each other. That would be fine. But we will do 2 formal sessions, one on the 7th on Wednesday, and again on the 25th right after church. Okay? And then today, John and I are available for you if you want to talk with us. Thank you.
Yes, you can now take a few moments to talk with those you agree with or disagree with. And I know you'll do so in love, because that's what this congregation is about. So please. Thank you, and let's, as always, stick around after our service for social hour where we can continue the conversation. For now, we are going to move forward with our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
I want you to imagine a table, a kitchen or a dining table, round or long, small or large, it doesn't matter. The following poem by Turkish poet Edip Cansever reflects on all things that can be put on the table. Not only hopes and dreams, but mistakes, misunderstandings, limitations, and possibilities. Are you dining solo or with others? Reflect on what would be on your table as I read these words. Table. A man filled with the gladness of living put his keys on the table, put flowers in a copper bowl there. He put his eggs and milk on the table. He put there the light that came in through the window, sound of a bicycle, sound of a spinning wheel, the softness of bread and weather he put there. On the table, the man put things that happened in his mind. What he wanted to do in life, he put that there. Those he loved, those he didn't love, the man put them on the table too. 3 times 3 makes 9. The man put 9 on the table. He was next to the window, next to the sky. He reached out and placed on the table endlessness. So many days he had wanted to drink a beer. He put on the table the pouring of the beer. He placed there his sleep and his wakefulness, his hunger and his fullness, he placed there. Now that's what I call a table. It didn't complain at all about the load. It wobbled once or twice, then stood firm. The man kept piling things on.
Please rise and body your spirit to sing our first in-service hymn of the morning, The Sun That Shines, number 19.
Come for all ages, any children, little flowers of the garden of life, come and join these flowers, please. Come, come, come. Come here. There's plenty. You know, there's seats over here on the floor if you want to. So, thank you. Wonderful. You will be helping me later. Okay, so, unlike what is written, listed the name in, for storytelling, my name is different. I call myself Luba for short, but actually my parents called me Lubov. In the Russian language, Lubov means love. I love you. And my story today, actually a couple of stories, is about trees and people. So, several years ago, actually many years ago, my mom, who lived in Russia, of course, in a small apartment, she had that big tree in front of her windows, growing tall with a huge crown. And that crown blocked the sun. The leaves didn't let the sun in. And Mom was unhappy because she wanted the sunlight. What would you do to let more sun into your room if the tree is blocking? Well, one neighbor said, well, what would you say? change the trees. Okay, all right. Well, you know, one of the neighbors said, make a solution with salt. Pour the solution every day. Sometime you will see that the leaves will turn yellow and they will fall off. Do you believe that? Yeah, you do. That's what my mom thought. Yes? And? Okay, in the fall they will fall. But in the summer, they still are blocking the sun. So my mom went every day with a bucket of solution with salty water, poured the water under the tree. Weeks passed and nothing happened. Why? Salt is not doing anything. And what about the roots? The roots of the tree were they were so deep. They were still getting, the leaves were getting all the nutrients they needed, and they were just fine. The tree was old. It had big roots. So that happened. Well, nothing happened until an unhappy neighbor from the second floor came with a saw and sawed the tree down. Problem solved. See? Another story. Well, a couple of years ago, Spokane Review, the local newspaper, published an article how sequoia tree was saved in Idaho. It was fascinating. You know, where sequoias grow, where do they grow? Only in one place in California. Only just one place. But one guy from Idaho, Boise, Idaho, he was a naturalist and a big lover of trees. He ordered 4 saplings of sequoia tree from California. When they came, he planted them. But out of 4 saplings, only 1 survived in a very dry and cooler climate of the Washington state. So the tree grew and grew and grew, and it was growing near a hospital. And imagine, the hospital was due for renovation, and that tree, sequoia tree, was in the way of construction. What? What can we do to save the tree? What? Move the tree! Yeah, you were going to say, move the tree. Okay, now, how many years sequoias grow? A lot, thousands of years. How old was that tree? Already? That tree was 100 years old. By human standards, that tree was just a child, maybe like you. But the child was 100 feet high. So how to move that tree? How many hours will it take to move that tree? Huh? For an hour. And what do you think? 100 hours. Wow. What? 10 hours. Oh, lucky guess. My gosh, you're the winner. It took 10 long hours to move or transport that big tree with a huge ball of dirt. Oh, wonderful. Congratulations. So, 10 long hours to move that huge ball of dirt together with the roots to a new prepared location. And they said that that sequoia had 95% of survival. Isn't it a happy story? Well, thinking about these 2 stories, I was a little bit, thinking in a different way. They made me think about people and their roots. People are like trees. They live best in the places where they can get all the food for their body and soul. Exactly 400 years ago, black people from Africa were uprooted from their land and transplanted into this continent. People in some other countries, Asia and Europe, had to cut their roots off from their natural habitat and flee to a distant land. Do you know why? Why did they do that? Why? Yes, so in their country the things were not very good. I can give you an example of my own grandparents. After the revolution in Russia in 1917, the religion was banned. So my grandfather was the son of a priest. He was afraid of persecution, but he couldn't go abroad, any other country. So he took his family, the wife and the child, and they were moving from one place in the country to another place until they found a more or less safer place where they could hide their identity. But, however, sometimes the living conditions become extremely dangerous for people's survival, and they have to leave their country for good to find a safer place. And now, probably you heard about the people who risk their lives crossing dangerous terrain or an ocean in search of refuge. And you know, historically, America is a country of immigrants, people whose roots originated in other countries or even in other continents. What does being an American mean to you? How do you relate to immigrants? I will close with the words of the Russian, my favorite poet, Mikhail Lermontov. A far sail shimmers, white and lonely, seen in the blue haze above the foam. What does it seek in foreign harbors? What has it left behind at home? These are the questions to think about. And now, as usual, we have to come here closer because we need to light this chalice. Where is it? Oh, the chalice is here. Who can help me lighting the chalice while Lisa is going to tell us some words, okay? So, hold the chalice. Yes, please, pick it up.
We light the second chalice so that as our children and youth go to their chapels, they carry the light of our flame with them. May it illuminate, inspire, and warm you as it does us. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its work in the larger world.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And we'll begin with a candle for all the victims of domestic terrorism in our country this weekend. And a candle for Brian Bonello's mom, Suzanne, who is in rehab after having her knee replaced earlier this week. Let's do take a moment of silence, as always, on behalf of others, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
Now is the time in our service for meditation. Please find a comfortable, receptive posture and open yourself with some deep breaths. I will lead you into the silence with this poem by the Reverend Lynn Unger. The universe does not revolve around you. The stars and planets spinning through the ballroom of space dance with one another quite outside of your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons, even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not? Then let go. You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless nor ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing the native element. Why pretend you can do otherwise? The world comes in at every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen. Every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course you are symphony. Whose tune do you think the planets are singing as they dance?
My reading today is from the book Obedience to Authority by Stanley Milgram. How many of you remember that one? For those who don't, this is, if you ever heard perhaps the legendary or apocryphal stories of a fellow who did experiments in the late 60s in which the subjects thought they were electrocuting people, even though they didn't want to, but they did because they were told to. And so this is a book about Milgram's and his research team's findings. And these particular citations are from a little section he wrote about disobedience, about what enables us to disobey. So, inner doubt, externalization of doubt, dissent, threat, disobedience. It is a difficult path, which only a minority of subjects are able to pursue to its conclusion. Yet it is not a negative conclusion, but has the character of an affirmative act, a deliberate bucking of the tide. It is compliance that carries the passive connotation. The act of disobedience requires a mobilization of inner resources and their transformation beyond inner preoccupation, beyond merely polite verbal exchange, into a domain of action. But the psychic cost is considerable. In disobeying, the subject believes one has ruined the experiment, thwarted the purposes of the scientist, and proved inadequate to the task assigned. But at the very moment the subject has provided the measure we sought and an affirmation of humanistic values.
We'd like to propose a toast. Here's to the ladies who lunch. Everybody laugh.
Lounging in their caftans and planning a brunch on their own behalf.
Off to the gym, and then a fitting, claiming they're fat.
And looking grim, 'cause they've been sitting, choosing a hat.
Does anyone still wear a hat?
I'll drink to that.
Here's to the girls that stay smart. Aren't they a gas?
Rushing to their classes in optical art, wishing they would pass.
Another long, exhausting day. Another $1,000.
A matinee, a pinter play, perhaps a touch of Mahler. I'll drink to that.
And one for Mahler.
Here's to the girls who play wife, aren't they too much?
Keeping house and clutching a copy of Time just to keep in touch.
The ones who follow the rules and meet themselves at the schools.
Too busy to know that they're fools. Aren't they a gem? I'll drink to them. We'll both drink to them.
And here's to the girls who just watch, aren't they the best?
When they get depressed, it's a bottle of scotch, plus a little jest.
Another chance to disapprove, another brilliant singer,
Another reason not to move, another vodka stinger. We'll drink to that.
Here's to the girls on the go, everybody tries.
Look into their eyes and you'll see what they know. Everybody dies.
A toast to the invincible bunch.
The dinosaurs surviving the crunch. Let's hear it for the ladies who lunch. Everybody rise, rise.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Deb. I have spoken to Deb before. I've told her, you can't bring alcohol to church services unless you bring enough for everybody. And so solipsism, if you've not heard the term before, is the belief the only thing one can be sure of that exists is one's self. The word literally means alone self, though self only is a smoother translation. Its most familiar example is René Descartes' famous conclusion, cogito ergo sum. To simplify, in his attempt to determine what is real, Descartes argued his way to the one truth that he believed to be indubitable. I think, therefore I am. To be clear, however, he only meant that he could not doubt the existence of his own mind, of the thing that thinks. Considering the possibility that a malignant demon might be deceiving him, because who wouldn't go there? Descartes determined, I will suppose that the sky, the air, the earth, colors, figures, sounds, and all external things are nothing better than the illusions of dreams by means of which this being has laid snares for my credulity. I will consider myself without hands, eyes, flesh, blood, or any of the senses, and as falsely believing that I am possessed of these. The idea there was no world outside his own mind, not even his own body, sounds pretty crazy, but it's unlikely that he actually believed these things. Descartes was merely performing a thought experiment in his effort to understand metaphysics, or the underlying nature of reality. Today, given our understanding of physics, we don't need to imagine a malignant demon to grasp that the external world is far different from that which our limited perceptions or senses perceive. And even these perceptions are translated into images interpreted by our brains and are seen, to use the term loosely, in the very same regions of the brain that see the images that we dream or imagine. So at the very least, we must conclude the world outside our minds isn't exactly what we perceive it to be, and what we perceive it to be isn't altogether unlike what we only dream and imagine. This then sets us up for what is a classic philosophical problem, the mind-body duality. In short, there can be only one, mind or body. For if both exist, they must be so different from each other that they can't possibly interact. Reality must therefore be entirely mind or entirely matter. That's the problem. The materialistic view is summed up well by Edward Fesser's book, Philosophy of Mind, A Beginner's Guide. There is, in short, no such thing as immaterial substance or soul or spirit, nor any aspect of human nature which in principle eludes explanation in purely physical terms. In this view, even our thoughts and our feelings are physical, caused by chemical and molecular reactions and interactions. The view that only mind is real is expressed in Descartes' rationalism, in Plato's idealism, for example, and in the thinking of some familiar modern gurus like Wayne Dyer, who says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Or Deepak Chopra, who believes there is only consciousness, the universe is consciousness. Proponents of this mindset would argue everything that appears to be physical is really just a product of our minds, or perhaps of some larger consciousness in the universe. I say all of this only to point out the notion that nothing exists outside of our own minds isn't entirely without support. Many philosophers take the possibility seriously, although philosophy hasn't yet given us an indubitable or undoubtable metaphysic, nor has physics yet discovered a unified theory of everything. In short, we still don't know what the nature of reality is. We don't yet fully grasp what it means to exist. Even so, most of us would think Descartes a madman, as we would anyone else, if he actually believed his mind and only his mind is all that exists, or for the empiricist among us, that his is the only mind that matters. Yet as peculiar and counterintuitive as solipsism seems to most of us, how many of us go about their lives behaving as if it's true? That theirs are the only minds that matter, and what they think and believe is the only possible truth. That's what I mean by the term solipsistic society. Although the belief oneself is the only self that is real, that one's mind is the only mind that matters, would seem to contradict any notion of society, right? I'm referring to a society of minds that believe as if their individual minds, their beliefs, their interpretation of events are the only minds that matter, the only beliefs that are true, and the only interpretations of the world that are real. Social media is a good example of what I mean. And I had to laugh when I was walking in because I pulled out my cell phone just as I noticed there was a line of 5 or 6 of us across the church, all had our devices, so I'm guilty as I'm about to charge. But social media is a good example of what I mean. In his book, a wonderfully titled book, a pretty good book too, called Think Before You Like. Guy Harrison, an award-winning journalist who writes a lot about thinking, in fact, I think one of his bestsellers was just Think, begins by mentioning what is becoming a familiar sight these days. 2 friends entered a coffee shop, ordered a drink, sat down together. Then over the next 10 minutes or so, Harrison says, they never spoke. Instead, they stared down at their phones and busied themselves poking and swiping on minuscule touchscreens in total silence. That's a pretty good example of what I mean by a solipsistic society. People together, but not really sharing their minds with each other. Maybe you don't use social media, or you agree with those who, as Harrison says, think Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter are nothing more than glorified time sucks that enable us to share inane videos, brag about the minor triumphs of our common lives, call strangers mean names, and gobble up fake news. Yet according to his research, the vast majority of internet users around the world are on social media, including 65% in the EU, and that's the low number, 71% in the US, 76% in Africa, 82% in Latin America, and 86% in the Middle East. And the number of internet users around the world are similarly high, ranging from between 70 to 100% in various nations. And these same stats are also close to the number of us who do have these smartphones. Most of us. It's remarkable how these handheld devices have become so important so fast, Harrison says. Americans check their phones on average nearly 50 times per day. Those in the 18 to 24-year-old bracket do it 82 times per day on average. Within 5 minutes of waking up, more than 40% of people have already looked at their phones for the first time of the day. And a high percentage of us also check them before going to bed, and about half of us do so at some point during the night. Collectively, he says, American eyes are engaging with those tiny screens about 8 billion times per day. And not that I'm disparaging social media or those who use it. I appreciate technology, especially because it enables us to connect with others in unprecedented ways. I'm only pointing out that if we're not thoughtful about how we use it, especially by intentionally disciplining ourselves to recognize and overcome its pitfalls, then we might end up like those two friends in the coffee shop, engaging less with those around us more often than not. A major pitfall, as far as I'm concerned, is that disengaging with the world around us while communicating with or about people who have no physical presence makes it very easy for us to dehumanize, even demonize others. Human communication is far more than just speaking words. In fact, that's the least of it. Let alone typing fast quips and phrases. Experiencing body language and vocal affect are crucial pieces of our brain development and interactions. If we're not doing so, if our kids aren't doing so, we're still not sure what the impacts on our neural development and our ability to socialize will be. This is all still new to us. Allison Stranger, for example, a professor at Middlebury College in Vermont, was physically assaulted by students in 2017 while they were raging against a speaker they disapproved of. As the political science professor tried to escort him safely off campus, she was reportedly shoved by one protester, and another pulled her hair so hard she suffered a concussion and whiplash injury requiring 6 months of physical therapy. What alarmed me most, she later said, was what I saw in the eyes of the crowd. Those who wanted the event to take place made eye contact with me. Those intent on disrupting it steadfastly refused to do so. They couldn't look at me directly because if they had, they would have seen another human being. That's another good example of what I mean by a solipsistic society. The belief one's own mind is all that matters. For it to work, we have to convince ourselves others don't matter by dehumanizing them, either in the classic analog way of not looking them in the eye or considering them unworthy to look us in the eye, the old honor-shame code that exists all over the world, or in the new digital way of destroying them on social media without ever having to look at them or interact with them at all. Remember that the word respect, spectacle, means to see. If we can't see others and don't acknowledge their humanity, we don't have to respect them. As Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt say in The Coddling of the American Mind, in the age of social media, cyber trolls, and fake news, it is a national and global crisis that people so readily follow their feelings to embrace outlandish stories about their enemies. This is so because a solipsistic society, a society of individuals who believe as if theirs are the only minds that matter, must solve the problem of other minds, establishing doctrines, beliefs, and now technologies that make it possible to ignore the minds of others are an effective way of going about it. Another pitfall of social media that adds to the problem of solipsism is that it too easily surrounds users in echo chambers that cater to their likes and filter for their biases. Again, as Lukianoff and Haidt say, both physical and the electronic isolation from people we disagree with allow the forces of confirmation bias, groupthink, and tribalism to push us still further apart. Not to mention search engine algorithms that repeatedly present us only with information our browsing habits suggest we're most interested in. Harrison adds that opposing viewpoints, contrary arguments, as well as random and novel ideas can become rare or non-existent inside the filter bubble. Algorithms serve up whatever information is deemed likely to make you happy and content. Reality and your personal growth be damned. The only other point I'd make about the relation of social media to solipsistic society is that the current president of the United States is a master at it, and is also, in my view, one of the most solipsistic thinkers I've ever witnessed. Right? As evidenced by what I take as his extreme lack of concern for others and complete disinterest in and disregard for the objective realities that contradict his own whim-based emotional thinking. I'm not going to mention any names, so. But most technology only makes us better at doing things we're already good at, including the bad things we're good at. Dehumanizing others, demonizing them for not thinking like us, and constructing echo chambers in which we're not exposed to ideas and beliefs different from our own are things human societies have been doing for thousands of years. So today's social media is being used in ways indicative of solipsistic social tendencies that have led to many injustices and cruelties throughout human history. We saw the same thing happen with the advent of corporate-owned and controlled media in the 1990s, during which news went from being unbiased information we all need to know to being biased information a few people wanted us to know. Fox News is the original filter bubble of the modern era and is still serving this purpose for millions of conservative viewers who have not yet fully embraced social media, just as MSNBC now does for those of a different political persuasion. So what's happened? How did our society become solipsistic? Why do so many of us accept the truth of whatever is in our heads over objective facts? Why are we so willing to dwell within the obvious biases of our own filter bubbles and echo chambers while utterly despising outsiders, innovators, and dissenters? To be brief, I'll lay much of the blame on our postmodern milieu. Postmodernism began around the late 1950s in reaction against enlightenment of the modernist era, which placed great faith in objective reality and truth, in reason, logic, and science, in the belief there is something essential about human nature that connects us all, that language refers to real things, that there's a real world outside of our minds that it describes, and that we can learn to better understand nature by developing general theories about how the world works. Postmodernism has rejected all of this. External reality, objective truth, reason and science, believing instead that human nature is relative only to individuals and that none of us therefore share anything in common, and that all truth is subjective. In short, postmodernism leads its adherents to believe one truth is as good as another, and that there's little need to prove what one chooses to believe with facts and reason, because facts and reasons are BS. Until now, Unitarian Universalism was defined by its historic commitment to Enlightenment thinking, instead including its emphasis upon reason, science, and human nature. Unfortunately, as we discovered at the recent General Assembly here in Spokane, this is no longer the case. Truth is now based upon individual feelings. Reason and logic are considered forms of oppression. Human nature is so fluid, it's not possible for us to relate to each other lest we share some very specific genetic qualities, and dissenting voices must be squelched before they burst our filter bubble. Fortunately, since the publication and distribution of my controversial book, The Gadfly Papers, the reaction to it indicates there are still plenty of Unitarians in our pews who maintain these historic values of our liberal religious tradition and are now pushing back against the postmodern relativism seeking to supplant our free and independent congregations. Thank you. They are out there because I hear from them every day. Another reason so many of us give in to solipsism is our response to what many psychologists consider the fundamental anxiety facing each of us, the conflict between freedom and belonging. If we are truly free to be ourselves, we face the possibility of standing out in a crowd and being rejected by the status quo. If being accepted and included by others is our only goal, however, then we can never be truly accepted and included because we must suppress our own authenticity, our own authentic expression. It would appear, perhaps, because we are such social creatures, the need to belong has the stronger pull most of the time. That's what the whole point of Erich Fromm's book, the book entitled Escape from Freedom, is about. We like the idea of freedom, but we are emotionally terrified of it because it means isolation. If we can't get over this fear, he suggests our societies inevitably become totalitarian, which is what's happening at this moment in history, even as liberals, I'm so sorry to admit, are leading the charge toward collective groupthink. Just this week, for example, I discovered an article in the UU World magazine stating the trinity of errors in Unitarian Universalism are individuality, exceptionalism, and our allergy to authority. The article, written by the current UUA president, borrows this criticism from a longer lecture by another UU minister who repeatedly suggests we must overcome these errors. In this process, its author, Reverend Frederick Muir, says, we will create something that has eluded Unitarian Universalism, a doctrine of church. Are you looking forward to that? I don't have time now to further discuss this 2012 lecture, which seems to serve as the blueprint for the sweeping changes that are now fundamentally and, in my opinion, detrimentally altering our liberal religion. But this one example, this call for an end to individualism and embrace authority by replacing it with church doctrine, should get the point across. If we can't overcome our fear of freedom, we become totalitarian. Either we become sadistic, Fromm says, by swallowing the wills of others so we can be at one with them while maintaining our own individual presence, our own freedom, or we become masochistic, giving our freedoms over to others so that we can belong. That is the sick response to this tension, the sadomasochistic response. Somehow, amidst this latest surge of authoritarianism and groupthink, a new paradigm has quietly overcome most of us. The presumption that we have a right not to hear ideas we disagree with. Whether it manifests on Fox News or on the campus of a liberal arts college or during a meeting of one of the most liberal religions in America, people across the political and ideological spectrum now take it for granted that they don't have to tolerate dissenting opinions. Ideas hurt, they say. Ideas are harmful. Harmful is the new word for heresy. It's the way we shut people down today. Harmful things are dangerous, and dangerous things must be controlled and forbidden. Dissenters must be dehumanized and demonized and ultimately silenced. For it is our right not to hear ideas that cause us pain, and our moral obligation as a solipsistic society to protect our bubble-headed members from being exposed to dangerous ideas. We wouldn't want them to pop. It is not a pretty picture, I admit, but it's one I hope we can all consider, whether I have painted it accurately or not. I'm one guy out of 750 billion people. Okay, it's an opinion. It is an opinion that is difficult to look at, I know, even as I face my own existential crisis today, fearing what liberalism, once my anchor, is becoming. And even more so, disturbed to witness the religion that has given my life so much meaning and purpose becoming something that I don't recognize, foreign to the values that have held me steady. So I have drawn my line in the sand, fuzzy as it is. I have rolled up my sleeves, and I am ready to take my licks as I continue to fight for what I believe is right and good in this world, including reason, freedom of conscience, and our common humanity. Thank you.
Please rise, embody your spirit, to sing number 134, Our World is One World.
That
Our benediction is by Barbara Hamilton Holloway. Go now in peace. Deeply regard each other. Truly listen to each other. Speak what each of you must speak. Be ready in any moment to disarm your own heart and always live as if a realm of love had begun. So be it. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.